Ladies and gentlemen, as we started this near-death experience category, we've gotten some very, very good feedback. The question that we've been asked is, what's the role of a psychic medium? What is their role? Is this a gift that they're born with? When do they know they have this gift? And most importantly, how does a medium provide support and comfort? Now, my name's Frank Zaccari. This is Life Altering Events. This is a near-death experience segment. The role of a psychic medium. Now, rather than me trying to do research and figure out what this is, I was contacted by Cindy MacNeil Sola, who is a psychic medium and a Reiki master. Now, Cindy's approach to healing uses a combination of multiple energies. Her sessions are spiritual, vibrational, and visual. Her readings promote the overall development of well-being. Her Reiki sessions promote stress reduction and relaxation, so her clients feel a sense of balance so that they can move forward. So Cindy, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you here. This is something, the role of a psychic is something that's misunderstood in a lot of areas.
Yes,
So
yes.
Share your story. Tell us, the viewers, how you got to this point. What happened when you were growing up?
You know, when I was young, I always knew I was different. I remember I had to be under 8. I remember telling my mother, just tell me I was adopted because I'm not like my brothers and sisters. I knew I was different. And I couldn't understand why. I had to go to Sunday school at 10 a.m. on a Sunday to talk to God and the angels when they were around me all the time, and I could speak to them anytime I wanted to. My mother finally gave up on me. And at the age of 13, my dad died very suddenly. And it was a huge impact, of course. And it was life altering. And I noticed at that point, I just felt buried. I just felt totally buried, and I felt self-contained. And one night, maybe a few weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was a visit. Excuse me, I know it was a visit. And he was at the end of the bed, and he was dressed in a suit and his tie, and he looked really nice, and he was there. I mean, he was there fully. And I was like, Dad, you need to stay. And he's like, just take care of your mother. I can't stay. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Just take care of your mother. And slowly his image started backing off until it almost like disappeared into the wall. And I had kept it quiet for a little while. And then I had talked to my mother one day, and I said, first of all, let me back up a minute. I'm sorry. I was not at the services because I was so distraught. I stayed with at a girlfriend's grandmother's house during the whole time. And I said to Mom, Dad, I had a visit from Dad, and I think she was testing me. She says, well, what was he wearing? And I explained the suit down to a T, to the very fine black threading going through it. And she looked at me and she said, my God, you would have no way of knowing that, but that's what we buried him in. I explained the tie and the whole 9 yards, and that verified to me that he was there. It absolutely was a visit. It came out more and more. That was like an opening for me. And up the road, when I had explained to my family that I could feel and see, and I knew things were going to happen kind of before they happened, or I wasn't surprised they happened because I had a feeling they were going to happen. They had me go see a psychiatrist. Naturally, I mean, they were concerned. I shut it right down. I shut it right down, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore. I didn't want to know anymore. And I stopped seeing and feeling for the time being.
Cindy, how old were you? You were in school at this time, correct?
I was 13.
13, okay.
Yeah, I was 13.
And the school suggested that you go to a mental health place? Is that what happened?
No, my family did.
Oh, I see.
My family did, because I was explaining to them that I could see and feel, and know when kind of things were coming, and they were like, okay, she's a little off,
Mhm.
So into the psychiatrist's office I went, and it wasn't their fault. It wasn't talked about back then.
That's right.
It was very hidden.
That's right.
So you kept it hidden. And during that time, I became very withdrawn. I became very shy. You hear through the grapevine that other kids in school think you're stuck up, or, you don't want to be around other people. And that wasn't the case. It's just that I didn't want people to know what I could visualize and feel. And by
Mhm.
keeping myself away from people, I wasn't getting their energies, and I could shut it off better.
Mhm.
So you create your own cocoon. I had a few good friends. I had acquaintances, but I had a few good friends growing up. They did not even know that I had the ability. I never, ever told anybody.
That's a very
So
sad way to live. You have this skill and ability. You are basically belittled and put down because you have this ability.
mhm.
Now, you were able to pick up this energy, and you knew you had to do something with it. So what happened next?
As I got older, things would happen accidentally. I woke up at 2 a.m. one night, and I called a friend, and it was out of concern. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? What's going on? What's going on in your family? And they were like, what are you talking about? And I said, something is happening. Something is going on. And they were like, yeah, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer today. So I was getting that energy, and I kind of let the cat out of the bag for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have visits when I sleep at night. And another case was a good friend's father was showing me this gorgeous plate. And it was a white plate, and it was a very fine china. And in the middle was a horse and carriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it had something to do with her daughter. And I called her up and I said, what's going on with your daughter? And she said, oh, she's been seeing the same guy for a while. And, I think it's getting serious, and they're going away for the weekend. And I'm like, don't say anything to her. I said, but the relationship is going to another level, but don't say anything. And she sent me this video about 3 weeks later that her daughter sent her of a beautiful horse and carriage coming out of the castle at Disneyland.
Wow.
And just riding around all Disney. And it was all about the bride and all about the carriage. And then it went back into the castle. Well, her grandfather was showing me this plate for a reason, because he was validating that he knew and was around his granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
So certain things like that, I get the energy to know what's kind of happening. And up the road, I just decided, I'm going to start letting the cat out of the bag a little bit. I took Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
level 1 through 4, and that opened me up even more. I had another visit at night, and I walked into my office, and there was this gentleman sitting in the corner, and round face, balding hair, blue eyes, just Caribbean blue eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing here? This is 6 o'clock in the morning. And I looked at him, and his eyes, like a golden light beamed out of his eyes and was hitting me in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't move. The light was so warm and so loving. And the golden light went from golden to white, pure white. And I was paralyzed. I just couldn't move. And I was starting to realize that this light is touching my soul. And I woke up. I knew it was another visit. It was very vivid. I was freezing. I knew something significant had happened. The next morning, I had talked to another friend who is in the holistic field, and it was absolutely a visit. And it was a visit for me it was my spirit guide. It was a visit for me to open up and do what I was put here to do.
Mhm.
And that's when I decided, okay, I need to tell my friends, and I'm going to tell my family, and I'm going to tell my coworkers the abilities and the gifts that I have. And I'm going to start seeing clients. Other than Reiki, I'm going to start seeing clients. And I did. And, it's a very scary thing to come out of the woodwork with this. Number one, people, are they going to believe you? Or all of a sudden, okay, now she wants to be a psychic medium. You get that.
Mhm.
Are they going to think I'm crazy because of the past it being so hush hush and not talked about? Not one person walked away. I knew a few people were skeptical, but not one person walked away or really belittled what I was telling them or anything like that. So at the end, it turned out to be a very good thing.
That's
And I
excellent.
was able to come out and be myself. And you take clients under the wing, so to speak, because you're there to help them.
Mhm.
And it was time for me. It was my time. So that's how the whole thing blossomed through the years.
Let's dismiss this image. We've seen movies and we see the psychic, and they're dressed in the whole garb and everything else, and and the incense and all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And it does create a sense of skepticism. Now, you're fortunate that you had friends that believed in you. So share with us, what is the process? The stuff we see on TV is nonsense, right? What is the process of an in-person reading? What do you do?
In person or on the phone,
Mhm.
either way, I use the same process. Number one, my office is very zen. I have no electronics at all, not even Wi-Fi. I want no interruptions. When clients walk in, I want them to feel cradled, because sometimes it's the first time reading and they're very vulnerable and they're very nervous.
Right.
I usually explain to them, I surround us in the white light. Nothing can harm or hurt them or me. They're not going to take spirit home with them if they decide to come into the room. And what I do is I basically ground myself and I connect my energies with my client, whether
Mhm.
it be there in front of me or if I'm on the phone, I keep running their name through my head. And when I make that connection, if spirit comes into the room right away, I normally get the feeling of how they passed.
Mhm.
I did a reading the other day, and I just had this heaviness right under the esophagus at the top of my lungs. And it was a male above them. It was her grandfather. He had passed of cancer in that area, in the throat, esophageal, and the lungs. It was all in that area. So that was the validation that it was him.
Mhm.
I also saw very uneven blood cells come down in like a waterfall. And when I see that, it usually means that, something was in the blood, either leukemia, an infection in the blood, something went through the body to spread this cancer. So usually that's how it starts when spirit comes into the room, is I feel and I see and I sense. My sense is heightened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I've been told, and when we spoke, that the spirit of people who die suddenly or unexpectedly. I was in the military during the
Yeah.
Vietnam War, and there was a lot of that occurred. And often they're desperate to connect with their loved ones. Is that
Mhm.
something that you see quite a bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one example is they want their family to know they're okay. Because when you die tragically and you die suddenly, whether people take their own lives or if it's a car accident or if they're in the service or what have you, there's no closure for the family, which is really hard. And sometimes spirit comes into the room in odd ways, such as I was doing a reading one time on a client, And she worked with this gentleman who had passed away suddenly from a motorcycle accident. And surprisingly, it had only been 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And he had come through and he validated who he was. And he needed to get a message to his mother that he was okay. And that it happened so quickly, he didn't feel any pain. And that message was given to her mother, his mother, through my client.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's within the client's family. They come through and I'll feel a sudden, like one accident was head trauma. I feel that sudden impact and I feel life was cut short. And then they will continue the validation, such as a male, your husband, your grandfather, your father. And this gentleman had come through to tell his wife that he had been at his 8-year-old's dance recital last Thursday night and wanted them to know how proud he was of his daughter and her. So he had validated how he passed. He had shown me the 18-wheeler that he was driving, down to the blue lettering on the side of the truck. He had validated that his daughter was in a dance recital and he was there. And he talked about certain things like that, and that he was okay and that he was around them. So they very much want the family to be at peace.
Mm-hmm. So there's a great deal of grief.
Absolutely.
And guilt.
A lot of guilt, because when something like that happens, you think of the smallest thing that you didn't do or the smallest thing that you did not or you did say to that person. And it goes through their head over and over and over. And I think we have all gone through that at one time or another.
Yes.
And it's an awful way to feel. And when a client leaves my office and they give me a hug and say, thank you so much, because the guilt is gone and I feel so much lighter. I feel so much lighter knowing that they're okay and they're at peace on the other side and that they are around me and know what's going on. They haven't, the body is a house. The spirit and soul leave the body. So it's just, they're so grateful when they leave. And it just makes my day. It makes my whole month. That's what I'm here for. That's the gift I have to give.
Wow. We've also heard stories that someone is so distraught after a death of a loved one. When we spoke, I gave you an example. One of my cousins was in the Navy, and he was not on a ship. He was working in a warehouse, and they were doing an air show, and a plane clipped a telephone wire, landed on where he was.
Yeah.
Right. Now, almost instantaneously, my aunt, his mother, sat up in bed and said, "Oh my God, Bobby's dead."
Yeah.
Now, when families come to you in that kind of a scenario, are they looking, yes, I'm okay, but are they able to say, "Bobby, I always wanted to say this to you," or "I'm so sorry about whatever"? Can conflict resolution be taken care of in these readings?
So can they communicate, so to speak?
Yes,
they can. Yes, they can. I'm the vessel. I have learned to say what I see and feel. If they ask me a question, I don't even have to relay it. Spirit hears it. They're going to give me an answer, and I am going to feel, hear, and know that answer for my client. And I will let them know. And 9 times out of 10 that's all they want to know is if they're okay.
Exactly.
But they will, and again, they will verify certain things during the conversation. So, I always tell my clients, don't be afraid to ask a question. Don't be afraid to speak during a session. You're not going to break any energy field. They want to know. They want some interaction. So it's a good thing that people do that and that they do ask questions. And again, it lifts the guilt and it lets them know that their loved ones are okay. And that's just, I'm just so blessed to be able to do this.
That's wonderful. Now, has this COVID issue impacted your ability? You said you do things on the phone.
Yes.
Are you doing like Zoom virtual? Do you get the same energy?
Yeah, actually, I just started Zoom. I do a lot of phone readings. I have a lot of out of state clients. So I was doing phone readings before, but heavy phone readings now, which is fine. Nobody wants to be across from you when the COVID rates are so high. So I don't have a problem with doing phone readings. Of course, I love to see my clients, and I still do.
Mhm.
They're pretty much 5 feet across from me. I have certain protocols in my office that I follow due to COVID. But yeah, and phone readings are very popular right now.
Are you able, even though they're not in front of you, the energy field still comes to you?
Yes, yes. It takes me a little bit more energy to connect on the phone, but yeah, it's no problem.
Wow, that's amazing. So ladies and gentlemen, so the image we see in the movies, that's not the case. You are providing help and assistance, peace of mind, and giving them a sense of calm and closure. Does that give you a great deal of satisfaction?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's and hiding it for so many years, and being able to come out and I have my own private practice, and to have people come to me and be able to give them that gift and those messages, it's just so self-gratifying. It really is. To know somebody has really been in touch and received a message that they needed to hear is huge.
Mm-hmm. It's I'm in awe, ladies and gentlemen. Cindy and I had a conversation prior to coming on and listening to these stories. I was just in awe of this ability. We've had empaths on in the past, and you are an empath, correct?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm very much an empath. Don't like crowds. I was never a concert kid. I can park my car on a Thursday and I'm fine till Tuesday. I have no problem. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my friends and family, and I love to go out to dinner and things like that, but I can't take crowds. I'm exhausted and I get fussy. I get real
Mm-hmm.
cranky. Yeah.
And you're able to pick up all this energy from a crowd. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I surround myself in the white light before I go out, and I'll do it a few times while I'm out. That's my little armadillo shell, and
Mm-hmm.
it does help reflect some of the energies. But if I'm at a large gathering, I'll stay for a certain amount of time, and I usually bow out on the early side.
So Cindy, with all that you've been through, the doubt, your own doubt from people who didn't believe the skill that you had, and all that you've accomplished in your life, what words do you want to leave with people about the importance and the role of a psychic medium?
You know, I've become my own, and it's my personal journey in life to help other people connect with their loved ones. I have a gift to share. I am fortunate that I am able to do that, and I have people backing me and supporting me with this now. And I can reunite clients with their loved ones, and they feel so much more at peace. And I love what I do, and I'll never stop doing it. I'm retired from my full-time job, and some people say to me, "You're retired. Why are you working?" Well, I'm working to help other people.
Mhm.
And that's huge when you can give a gift and do healing. Healing work is great.
It's just incredible. The the stories that you have, and the ability to make people, to me, the biggest thing, Cindy, is the closure.
Yes,
You don't know what happened. Are they okay? That by far is the thing most people want to. Are they suffering? Did they suffer at the time they died? Are you able to determine that? Was it? Is
they
it?
tell me that.
They tell
They
you.
tell me that. They usually tell me or show me how they passed. And they usually, 9 times out of 10, they usually tell me their last few minutes. And a lot of, I would say 99.9% of the time, it's no pain.
Mhm.
Even in a severe car accident or something like that. I don't know if the body goes into so much shock if they live a few minutes past that it just doesn't get the pain waves. But they talk about the transition.
Mhm.
They either talk about they just took their last breath easily, or it was such an impact that suddenly they were on the other side. So that's usually how it is at the end.
So do people come to you, Cindy, and say, like a child dies, let's say, why? They're so distraught. Why did this happen? Is that something that people bring to you?
Yes, yes. And you know what? We all have a bookmark in life. We never know when it's gonna be at the end of the book. And I usually tell my clients, and this is true for all of us, and I think every death, as young or old in it, even if it doesn't make sense, they have done what they were put on this earth to do.
Mhm.
And they were put here for a certain amount of time to move on to certain lessons in life. And even though they were taken young, they had a purpose here for the time that they were here. And 9 times out of 10, I should say pretty much 100% of the time, my clients are very comfortable with that when they think about it, even though it might be a 17-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 45-year-old. Your son is your son, and your
Right.
daughter is your daughter. They'll always be your baby. And it's always, I've never, it's beyond painful. And I do understand that. But by the time they leave, realizing that and talking about it and having the validation of spirit in the room and spirit telling them that they're okay. And a lot of times they tell me who they're with: grandmother, grandfather, good friend that passed before them. So they leave much more satisfied and much more at peace.
Wow. One of the things that I've observed, I'm Italian Sicilian. I
Yeah, yeah.
grew up Catholic, right? And one of the things that we saw near death with relatives is they would say, someone who passed before had entered the room and was going
Yeah.
to escort them,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
Now, when they're trying to connect again, they, as you said, they bring up these other people that are there with them.
Yes, they
Wow.
do. They do. I had a reading a few weeks ago, and it was funny because it was a very close Italian family, very
Mm-hmm.
close, very large Italian family. And they had this big thing of playing cards and drinking on Saturday nights. It was a party. And they would always go to each other's houses. And they talked about the cooking. They talked about the card game. And there was one gentleman there, and he was a rounded gentleman, and he had a cigar in his mouth. Laughing, he was having a great time. She knew exactly who that was. And each person at the table that her dad was showing me what they were all doing, they're on the other side playing cards. They're having a ball. And each person came through. She had like 8 or 9 people that came through on that one day. And it was all people that had passed who were with her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting. I think she had an uncle come up. There was a couple that was a really close good friend of theirs that had come into the room. So they do come through with who they are with on the other side.
And that has to be a great sense of calm, because you don't know. Someone goes
Yeah.
away, and somebody said to me one time, okay, you live, you die, they throw dirt on you. Is that it?
Yeah. My husband used to think that too.
Right.
No more.
That can't be all there is.
No, no.
I think what you do is showing people that's not it. That's
No.
not the end.
And it's terrible to say I never go visit my parents' grave. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. It's a house. The spirit and the soul has moved on. I know my mom's around me. She leaves me bobby pins. I don't use bobby pins. My granddaughters don't use bobby pins. I find bobby pins in my house, in my car. I know she's here. I know my dad is here by certain things. So, I don't feel that, yes, they throw dirt on the grave and that part is done, but they move on to a different stage.
Mhm.
And they're still all around you.
When my mother died, she told both of my daughters that, well, you won't see me.
Yeah.
I will be here. I will be with you. I will be that voice in the back of your mind.
Oh.
Okay. And at one point, somebody said, well, that's just something that grandparents say. That's not true, is it? That actually occurs.
It does. I've had spirit come through and tell their daughters or their loved ones, I have a conversation with your mother every night. And they look at me and they say, well, you're absolutely right, because my mother sits on the side of the bed and talks to my father every single night. And I'm like, I know. He's telling me about the conversation. He's even telling me what is on the dresser that is his. One gentleman came through and said, she finally put my wallet away. I could see this wallet sitting on top of the dresser, and all of a sudden it was gone. She put her husband's wallet away that morning, and he was validating that.
Mm-hmm.
So they are there a lot of times for the conversation, and they can hear you. I mean, have you ever sat down on a sofa or anywhere else and all of a sudden you smell perfume?
Yes.
Or
yes.
cigarette smoke,
With pipe, right.
Yeah. And have you ever been in a room with no windows and all of a sudden you feel air go by your cheek? That's an angel's kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is in the room with you. And the same thing when you smell a scent. I smell cigarette smoke, I think of my dad. And he's there. He's right there. And I can every once in a while I'll smell that. That's another indication. And people don't really pay attention to what's going on around them like that, when spirit is actually telling them, yeah, I'm here, and they're ignoring it.
Wow. We had an episode, my youngest brother, injured in a car accident 35 years ago. He's a quadriplegic.
Yeah.
And so he has aides that come and get him in bed at night and get him up in the morning. One of the aides was telling me, who was a friend of the family, that this house is haunted. And I said, okay, let's go with that. What's going on? She says, well, there's this spirit, white-haired woman that floats around in the house. And I said, okay, well, what does it do? And she said, well, it at times has come up and it grabs my big toe and it wiggles it. And I said, well, when does that happen? Because my brother has to be turned every couple of hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I got tired, I fell asleep, and you were supposed to turn him, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, that's my grandmother. That's how she used to wake us up when we stayed at her house.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they went, what? And I said, that's what my grandmother did. My grandmother is hovering and watching over her grandson.
Yes.
She goes through this.
Yes. I was reading a wonderful younger girl a few years ago, and her grandmother had her grandmother had passed. She was super, super close to her grandmother. And her grandmother was talking about her daughter's room, and it was all rainbows and butterflies. And she said, oh my God, she goes, I just redid my daughter's room and it's all rainbows and butterflies. Mm-hmm. And the grandmother talked about her cross that she put in her daughter's room on the wall next to the window. And that's where she hung her grandmother's cross. So the grandmother was validating, I'm here, I'm all around, I'm in the house. But yeah, spirit can be in a house. They can pull your toe. Yeah. They can, sometimes you feel like somebody's sitting on the bed. Sometimes you feel like, somebody's in the room or something like that. And yeah, it's usually there.
That's incredible.
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, I hope we've dispelled the myth that you see on television, because what Cindy does is truly amazing and comforting and brings great value to people who are suffering and need to hear this. So Cindy, we're just about out of time. What last words do you want to leave with the viewers?
I don't want them to think a psychic medium is the person with the long black nails and the crystal ball in front of them. We are average people. We have been given a gift. And I don't want people to think that we're crackpots, because that's not the case. And I have had non-believers come into the office and left being a believer. Just find a reputable psychic medium. There is a lot of wannabes out there.
Yes.
Hate to say it, but it's true. Find somebody who's reputable, and usually it's by word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I am so blessed to be able to do what I do. And I thank all the clients who reach out to me, because my life is just so rewarded, and it's because of them.
Well, that's a wonderful way to end this conversation, Cindy. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Cindy again. This has been tremendous. If you have an issue, if there's something that's bothering you, contact her. And if you don't know how to contact her, contact me, and I will make sure I connect you with her. Now, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what life throws at you, and as we've heard today, a lot of stuff's going to be thrown at you. Please do three things. Look up, get up, never, ever give up. Pick up the pieces and start moving forward. And better times and better people like Cindy will come into your life. If you want more information on Cindy, you go to her websites. Contact me. I'll make sure it gets to her. Now, you can see this show on ROKU TV or on my YouTube page, Frank Zaccari. I also send links to Cindy, so she'll post it wherever she posts her information. If you go to the YouTube site, please subscribe. Now, let me leave you with this, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone, and the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Cindy showed us where many of those rocks are. Join us again next week for another life-altering event. Thank you again, Cindy.
You're welcome. Thank you.